Hello again, and I'm back with a release named Zero. No, it's not the 700 Sound Notes one, nor is it the True Fears one, because lack of availability within my region. But here I have the Tanchjim Zero, Tanchjim's newest and so far their cheapest release yet, price-wise at least. So, alright, no more dilly-dallying. Let's see how it fares in this ever busy and ever competitive ultra low budget landscape in this review of the Tanchjim Zero. So the box for the Tanchjim Zero is fairly typical of budget products. However, you can still see that Tanchjim is trying to keep it classy and more premium than it really is. So instead of just a simple render of the Tanchjim Zero in the front, you're getting the anime waifu treatment with Asano Tanch, Tanchjim's mascot waifu, looking all cute and stuff, wearing the zeros as you can see. From the tag here, as well, she's the one who tuned this IM, really she contributed to the tuning of the IM. Now in the back, you've got some normal specs as per usual, but look at the sides here. You can see the embossed Tanchjim texture that kind of glistens in the light. Now I love these little details. It makes the Tanchjim boxes distinct from the other brands, and it makes them feel more kind of exclusive, so kudos to them. Now when you open the box up from the side, and then you take out this inner compartment here, give me a little bit, it's a bit tight fitting, but yeah, you take it out and you will see that the inner box, it unfolds, right, to reveal the Tanchjim Zero in a plastic bag, which we'll set to the side for now. And below that here, we get these two sets of ear tips. One is the narrow bore, it comes in 3 sizes, just a generic kind of smoky silicone thing, and then the other is another wide bore style with 4 sizes, which is quite generous for the $15 that you're paying Tanchjim. And then below that, you get this fabric pouch. It feels, very smooth. It's a puffy and a fluffy material, high quality. And this seems to be the same thing that came with the Tanchjim Ola. So it's great, and another solid inclusion in the package. Finally here, you get a bunch of the documentation, right? So here you've got just like a contact card. You have this, okay, sorry, give me a minute. Oh man, this is hard to get on, huh? This is the certification tag thingy. You've also got the warranty card and a manual, which doesn't really say anything. That is like a manual, it's more like the warranty terms, but hey, it's printed in English, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese as well. So here are the Tanchjim Zeros themselves, and man, it looks nice, right? It ain't no metal thing, and it's not even like a colorful resin piece with a handcrafted feel, but I'm always a fan of the sort of see-through aesthetic with, this sort of really elegant looking design that the Zero executes quite well. Now the front plate is, as you can see, it's like plastic, but it's like textured like metal. I think the Tanchjim logo here though is a bit, it's kind of a bit tacky, but as you can see, it is quite sharply printed, like very high quality. And despite a similar looking nozzle to the Ola here, what with the thickness, and it has like a big lip that has bad tip compatibility, the ergonomics and the angle nozzle on the Zero has been slightly changed. It's decently comfortable when worn on your ear, being light and non-intrusive, but with an easy under-ear fit as well. However, I actually would have still liked like a smaller nozzle, at least a smaller lip here. This is still too big in my opinion. Now this cable, it's not as how should I say this? It's not as supple and nice feeling as the Ola's cable, but it's still of good quality. The thing doesn't tangle much, and it won't negatively affect the sound of the Tanchjim Zero. They've also addressed one of my grievances about the mic'd up version. As you can see, this one, it has a mic here, right? But with the Ola, there was no chin slider, but look what this is here. We finally got a chin slider even on the mic'd up version. That's great. Oh, and this chin slider and Y splitter, although it's basic looking because it's basically just some rubberized plastic, it is very functional and tasteful looking. The jack is also covered in this similarly semi-rubberized plastic, but again, it's quite nice. Watch this line, what else can I say? The one element still lacking here is a cable tie, which even the Moondrop Quarks gives you, and to a lesser extent the lower quality Velcro strip on the Moondrop Chew. Tanchjim, they just wrap their wires with this little white piece of metal wire. Maybe next time. I hope in future releases a cable tie is going to be included. Now the mic clump here, it's a pretty standard ordeal, just like a matte metal looking tube with a 1-button remote control scheme. And here's a mic sample. So the microphone on the Tanchjim Zero, it's just average. It's a little muffled, there's not a lot of clarity, but it'll get a job done, you know, for a basic call or even a Zoom meeting. This will do. As for sleeping with the Tanchjim Zero, it's actually quite good. I didn't expect it to be so, because with the OLED, if you remember, it's got a similar looking housing, right? But it's got a bulging front plate, and it made it so that the OLED wasn't that great for sleeping. But the Zero, it's surprisingly low profile, and it doesn't bulge out or press against your ears that much when laid to the side. So because of this, the Zero actually is quite a nice sleeping IEM. Still not as great as the TRNC S3 I reviewed before, but definitely very good sleeping performance here. Now, as for what to pair with the Tanchjim Zero, you're gonna want a warm source to pair with the Zero's more neutral, bright kind of sound. And that for me will be the Ibeso DX150. I find that it gives the Zero just some extra needed bass presence, and it warms up the sound signature a little bit. With tip rolling, you're gonna want to stick with wide bore ear tips. For my ears, they fit quite nicely, whereas the narrow bores, they feel a little stiff and a bit uncomfortable due to the stalk kind of bulging out onto the already thick nozzle of the Zero. But luckily, the wide bores that Tanchjim gives you in the box, it works quite well. But I'll be using these, look at these. These are M-sized Akustune AET-07s, if I remember correctly, which further improve the bass presence a little bit, though not by much. But what I like more about these is that it's more comfortable on my ears, and like I said though, most wide bore ear tips will do. This is just my personal preference. And with all that out of the way, let's get into the sound of the Tanchjim Zero. The sound signature of the Tanchjim Zero tracks closely to its higher tier model, the Ola. That is, the premise of the Zero is essentially to present a bright neutral frequency response, and it throws in a few tuning improvements compared to the Ola as well, just to sweeten the pot. So starting with the bass. The bass of the Zero is still definitely a reserved implementation, and even at its most plentiful, it still isn't going to be a bass cannon. However, it has been increased in quantity enough to the point where, with some tip rolling and source matching, you're certainly getting an adequate bass presentation that can work with even heavier genres like EDM. And that doesn't mean you're giving up on quality either. For the Zero, it handles bass detail quite nicely given its price, remaining articulate, well defined, with snappiness and a short decay. It's also got a soft bass texture to make up for it. Overall though, a nice improvement from the Ola days. Kudos to Tanchjim for listening to the user feedback and improving their tuning with this model. The Zero's mid-range is also quite nice, though with some rough points. The lower mids are almost dead neutral to my ears, though a little more warmth wouldn't have hurt. Going to the upper mids, you're getting a more emphasized presentation that makes it quite intimate, which for the Zero, it's kind of a pro and a con. It's pro in that, for the most part, it makes for a very intense performance, with the upper mid-range boosts creating a good sense of false detail for the music. However, it does have a tendency of being a bit too hot at times, with some slightly present peakiness showing through. And this is the sections where the driver is kind of a little overwhelmed, and you can hear some slight smearing of details, right? That and the lighter than usual timbre of the Ola remains here, uplifting female vocals, but at times it can make husky male vocals lack a bit of that oomph and power. Still though, a quite competent implementation, and I'd be lying if I said I'm not nitpicking a little with the Zero's mid-range, due in part because it is, in other fronts and otherwise, an excellent sounding performer. The treble of the Zero is competently done. Certainly nothing revolutionary, but it does the fundamentals well and doesn't overstay its welcome. You get a relatively out of the way treble range that doesn't exhibit any weird piercing and sibilance, nor any sort of roller coaster like random peaks and valleys like, the usual KZ. It's also quite clean sounding actually, maintaining a good amount of clarity that you don't often expect for products in this price tier. Even if the differences are minute, I prefer the Zero's treble over the Chew and the Quarks for what it's worth. The soundstage of the Tanchjim Zero is above average in terms of width. It's ever so slightly out of your head in terms of perceived space, though it is lacking in its height, with everything kind of just laid out in a straight line. There's a bit of deviation here and there, but it's only a basic level. Technical ability though is where the Zero scores some extra kudos for me. Again, maybe it's a combo of the clean and unintrusive tuning, and I guess what seems to be a stripped down Ola design instead of having to design something that fits a budget. But the Zero, it has a quite nice technical showing here. Like, the separation and the macro detail performance can play up into the $25-$30 tier quite easily, and can match with the Chew, whilst putting a decent gap between itself and the Quarks. On the more conventional front though is the imaging and the micro detail performance, which, whilst not bad per se, is just above average in most regards. Yeah, what with the price proximity of the Chew to the Tanchjim Zero, and of course its popularity in the recent budget Chi-Fi game, it's inevitable that it's going to be compared to the Tanchjim Zero, right? So on the build front, the Chew still has an edge due to its metal build, and it's also got the spring tips, of course. But to be fair, the Zero isn't too far behind, with 2 types of ear tips included and the better carrying pouch. Now on the sound front, the Zero, it does enough to trade blows with the Chew at a cheaper price tag. Its bass is about on par with the Chew, whilst for the upper mid-range, the Zero doesn't exhibit the piercing male vocals that the Chew has, right? Along with a sort of just a better amount of technical ability to my ears. Like, say for the Chew's imaging though, that one, the Chew still takes the cake. I gotta give props to Tanchjim though. They released later than Moondrop, but they always learn from their fellow anime waifu competitor, and they make an equally, if not more competitive product that fixes some of the tuning issues from the already available Moondrop offering to make their own offering even better. So good on you, Tanchjim. Between the Tanchjim Zero and the Moondrop Quarks, now this is originally I thought the Tanchjim Zero was competing with, right? The Moondrop Quarks. Both of these, they share a similar transparent plastic build, with the Zero having the better materials and cable, but the Quarks, it pulls out a win in the size department, being more low profile and all that. Now the Zero smokes the Sparks in presentation accessories though. It makes the Quarks' packaging look cheap in comparison. Now for the sound, yeah, the Quarks is soundly outmatched by the Zero on a technical front. You're just getting better separation, more precise detailing, more clarity on the Tanchjim offering. For the signature, the Quarks goes warm whilst the Zero goes bright. This gives the Quarks some advantage in the bass region, where it it dishes out a bit more bass quantity, despite the microdriver size. With warmer lower mids, well, if you're into that, which I am. On the upper mids though, the Quarks has a pretty divisive 3 kHz peak. That's a bit of a hit and miss ordeal. Whereas the Zero, it's the more consistent performing implementation, and it's well performing as well. Certainly the better treble performer too, as the Quarks' high frequencies, well, we have a bit of an early roll off, whereas the Zeros are decently extended. Still though, I think the Quarks has its niche. Due to being a microdriver product, there's gonna be people like that smaller size, whereas with the Zero, it's certainly still small, right? But it is rocking a bigger driver and a slightly bigger housing. It probably sits along the more conventional IM segment then, so pick your poison according to your preferences. Between the Tanchjim Zero and the Ola, considering the similar appearance, the Ola has a few points to set itself apart from the Zero. You're getting the metal front plate, you're getting a better and removable cable with the Ola, but ergonomics wise, I actually prefer the Zero. Now the Ola's unboxing and accessories are much more premium feeling though, with ear tips and a plastic holder tool, and a sort of layered packaging kind of style on the Ola compared to the Zero. Sound-wise, the Ola and Zero are quite similar. Both try to portray the bright neutral signature with some differences in the upper mid-range and the bass for sure. If the Ola's bass is often just kind of too weak for anything requiring bass, you can give it the mods and then block the vents and all that, but stock-wise, the Zero's low end has been slightly boosted up, and it's now still light though, but it should suffice and giving it a lot more leeway to play with a wider variety of music. However, I think the Ola's upper mid-range is still a more well-tuned choice here. It's got some dips to try and combat the shoutiness without sacrificing vocal presence, and whilst the Zero though, it has just a more general harmon-like boost where that at times it can get pretty hot. Overall, I think Tanchjim does well in differentiating their products and not actively gimping the lower tier release just to upsell you the higher end item. It's gonna go down to whether you want a more bass-like Ola, or you want the Zero with slightly more bass than the more conventional upper mid rise, right? That's on you to decide. So with a lot of releases named Zero out in the budget hi-fi market right now, I think Tanchjim's own has done quite well to continue putting forward a competitive products whilst also maintaining their own brand of sort of idiosyncrasies in sound. Though to be sure, they keep releasing products just a bit later as a response to the Moondrop's newest release. And so often the Tanchjim releases can get kind of overshadowed. So if you haven't jumped on a true hype train, or the dozen other hype trains that are out right now in this really fast moving market, take a look at the Tanchjim Zero. It's quite an elegant release that doesn't scream to you that it's some kind of bang for buck champion, but it presents its excellence with that bit of subtlety that other releases right now tend to kind of go more aggressive, whereas this one it shows it to you but subtle. Hence why the title Elegance, right? And that is the end of yet another review. As always, I'll put the music I used into the description, as well as links to my website and my Patreon where you can support me so I can actually have the funds to bring in more gear for review. Of course, thank you to all of the patrons and supporters who have stuck with me throughout these times. Of course, I'm a bit more settled in terms of my move-in process, but there's still a lot to be done, right? As you can hear, the room right now is a bit echoey. I'm trying to find a way to combat it, but no promises on that one, sadly. But yeah, otherwise, like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content, as well as whatever content I decided to post recently. I've been getting into vlogging and, you know, just recording the cool stuff that Japan has to offer, right? And hit the bell button, of course, if you want the videos to be actually delivered into your feed. If you have any questions, any suggestions, any comments, of course, please do share them into the comment section. And with all that being said, I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. This is Marion, signing off.